Hello, you lovely listeners. I'm Amy. Welcome to the Really Good Conversations podcast, where we will delve into the minds of the business people we have met in the process of launching our first card game. We will be uncovering their secrets to success, their biggest mistakes, and sharing the key lessons they have picked up en route. So, if you're looking for an engaging chinwag mixed with business insights and a good pinch of fun, you're in the right place. Let's have a really good conversation. Welcome to today's episode of the Really Good Conversations podcast. I have a fabulous lady joining me today, Sara-Louise from Wired Differently. Sara is a social impact entrepreneur and neurodiversity specialist, therapist, and coach. Welcome to the podcast, Sara.
Hello, thank you so much for asking me.
It's a delight to have you here. And we obviously originally connected a few months ago on the world of social media when you reached out after spotting the cards, and we had a fantastic conversation about your world, our world, and obviously thought it was brilliant for you to come and share some of what you do with our guests today. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about your organisation, Wired Differently, and what it is that you guys do.
Okay, well, I started off many years ago as a low-cost therapist and coach. So for about 10 years, I was charging anything from a coffee to about £35. And then I built up my practice and decided that that was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. But I didn't, in inverted commas, just want to be a therapist and coach. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I had loads of ideas for projects that actually came from sessions with my clients, where I identified gaps of things that didn't exist and that my clients really needed. So I set about creating them. And we're now a team of 24, unbelievably, 3 years in.
Wonderful. And what are the biggest passions you have from the work that you do?
Oh my goodness. I think finding solutions to social problems. Up until 3 years ago, I did not know that social entrepreneurship was a thing. I did always have a bit of the dragon's den in me, but I've never been money motivated enough. And in my employed jobs, I was always told, we think you're great, but you just don't seem hungry enough, which I think they meant for the bottom line. And that's not true. I think the bottom line keeps you safe and resilient, and money is important and it's interesting. But no, it's not my main motivator. And I think that my team are the same. As responsible as we are with money, and as much as we want to protect everyone's jobs, that's just not the main thing.
Yeah. And you mentioned when we spoke previously that you're particularly quite interested in the entrepreneurial space and how entrepreneurs perhaps think a little bit differently. What observations have you seen in that world of entrepreneurs?
Well, interestingly, about 33%, depending on who you ask, of entrepreneurs have ADHD. And that's the same statistic as prisoners have ADHD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. It's an eerily close statistic, which does say a lot about your upbringing and who you've been fortunate or not to meet in life and what path you've gone on. But yes, I love the fact that entrepreneurs run things their way. I don't mean in an arrogant way, and I don't mean in I don't want that, back of my mind feeling of, God, if I ever had to go and get a job again, I would be unemployable because I'd be so into my own thing. Like, I don't want to be that person that's self-employed because they can't be employed. But there is a reality of that in our community. I did find employment super hard. But what I love about entrepreneurship is, it reinterprets what work is and what creating enterprise is, as opposed to just doing the 9 to 5 in a sort of open plan office where you're kind of under surveillance. That's where open plan offices came from. There's more respect for working from home. There's more respect for people who come from different minorities. When COVID was sort of over, in the sense everyone was starting to go back to work and furlough and everything was over, it was people in different minorities, including neurodivergent people, who didn't want to go back to the office. They were the least willing to go back, and single parents as well. So I love the fact that work can be reinterpreted, and that's very freeing because people struggle as much with work as they did with their school days. The two are very closely linked.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about that before, that sort of regimented structure format of a day that doesn't necessarily suit everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
And through the work that you do, obviously, we're all about communications, conversations. What challenges do you observe or encounter with your clients when it comes to communication and conversation?
So we have most of the time, like most companies, we have a very amiable conversations and everything's lovely. I am one of those people that likes everything to always be lovely, and sometimes I have to rein that in. Occasionally we have difficulties, and I would say that there's a large part of rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is very prevalent in our community. Really, really, really intense, painful and debilitating rejection sensitivity, not your everyday. I know nobody likes rejection, obviously. Also, things like imposter syndrome, very prevalent in our community, and that can really impact on things. So, for example, we have had occasions where people have come to us perhaps for support, but I think maybe their neurodiversity perhaps wasn't their main issue that they had, and they maybe needed other support. I'm thinking of things like our support service and our virtual assistant service. I'm not talking about myself as a therapist. We've also now got neurodiversity business coaching and an education branch, etc., etc. And I think that sometimes we've had to say, we don't actually think we're a good fit. And believe me, we've tried. Like, we've looked at all the options. We try not to be like other organizations that might say things like, I'm sorry, you're too complex for us, or we can't help you because you're too much. And that's certainly not where we're coming from. But there are times we have to just say, I'm really sorry, I just don't think we're a good fit. We've tried everything and we wish you well. And that's where RSD has kicked in. And we have occasionally gone down some very long paths, and once or twice we have had to we even had to serve a cease and desist at one point and deal with the police. So and I know that people are hurting. Like, I've had RSD. Believe me, I've struggled with it all my life, and it is absolutely catastrophically painful. And there's very little people out there that understand it professionally. So I think that's where we've had issues. More sort of on a day-to-day level, we are a 100% virtual company. And we also have team members with varying degrees of, say, needing to work with their colleagues. So we've introduced things like body doubling and lots of different ways of getting together online. And we may start to take a few bits offline just so that people really need that, can get that met. But it's complex because we're all over Britain, and we're hundreds of miles from each other. So yeah, there are challenges, A, to being virtual, and B, to running a business for neurodivergence, by neurodivergence, with all the things that can entail.
Definitely. So originally you reached out to us on our social media, and I think you'd seen a post or an advert of the Really Good Conversations cards. What was it that resonated with you when you got in touch with us?
It was so instant. It was like, wow, that is ripe for neurodiversity. I love collaborating with people with different skill sets, complementary skill sets. I don't do a lot in the neurodiversity world because I've always been the kind of person that it's like, well, I bring what I bring, but I want to explore anthropology and healthcare and, in your case, games or leisure or communication, and so I saw that and I just thought, wow, conversation. I mean, if that's not a topic that comes up in every coaching session, every therapy session, if it's not important to everything we do in terms of how we language our marketing and the language of neurodiversity. So I just thought, I wonder whether they do a neurodiversity version, because we are always being told as neurodivergent people that we need social skills, and that's a bit of a sensitive topic.
And tell us then a little bit more about that sensitive topic, social skills, and what that obviously means for yourself and the world of neurodiversity.
Yeah, sure. So have you ever seen something like Dating on the Spectrum? It's like a Netflix program about, young people who are, say, neurodivergent, and they're going dating. There's an Australian one, there's an American one. Those are really good programs. The Australian one followed the model of we're going to teach you to be neurotypical, but not just neurotypical, like something from the 50s. So the sort of social skills, in inverted commas, that they were teaching these young people, who were pretty cool young people, were things like, when you get to a restaurant, you pull out the sorry, has anyone done that for the last how many decades? So I'm firstly thinking, why do we keep insisting on teaching neurodivergent social skills that come from the neurotypical world that are way out of date? We get called things like archaic and old school and old souls. Well, if you're teaching us to do stuff that no neurotypical has done since the 50s, obviously we're going to look pretty old fashioned. The American version was better because the dating coach on that version was much more kind of neurodiversity friendly, and they did things like parallel play dates where they would go on a date and do stuff parallel but not facing each other. So instead of making them go to a restaurant and sit opposite each other, making painful eye contact, because we really struggle with that, they would go bowling, or they would go, do archery or something where you're quite literally parallel. And I just thought, wow, that's way more ND friendly. So yeah, the social skills thing bugs me because I've had a really unusual career. So I came out of hospitality for 23 years to finally train as a therapist for 5 years. And then I was in employability for people who'd had complex lives. They'd maybe been in prison. They'd maybe had a class A drug addiction. They'd maybe never been out of the benefit system, which is actually really, really rare. They'd fallen out of work 10 years ago. I mean, people with lots of complexity. And time and again, it was, you've just got to teach them that they've got to have these social skills. But I've always questioned, what do we mean by that? And how dare someone say this is a social skill? By whose standards?
Yes.
So I talk about designing social skills. What would you like your social skills to look like? What environments do you want to be in? If you're in environments where you've got to keep remembering social skills and you're kicking off and your, sensory sensitivities are making your life a nightmare and you don't have any tools for that, you're like a fish out of water, and that's not the place where your social skills tend to shine anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, that it's sort of thinking in the world that everyone is supposed to think and do and act a certain way, rather than this actual acceptance that everybody is different. Everyone communicates differently and acts differently, behaves differently, and actually that should be more celebrated and supported, really.
That's so true. And so with Wired Differently, the ethos we have is, yes, 3/4 of our team are neurodivergent, because I think you see the word wired differently. And if you want to work with us or for us, then obviously you're going to have something that struck a chord when you saw Wired Differently. But essentially, we want to teach people to think differently for everybody's benefit. It's not us and then. It's not we're the cool kids in the ND camp. Well, that would be nice, actually, because you spend all your life thinking you're not that cool because you're geeky and weird. But it's not actually about that. It's about going, we're going to apply our neurodivergent thinking to make solutions that work for everyone, because I don't believe for a second that neurotypical people like being dictated to as to this is normal and this is weird and this is where you're included and this is where we're going to allow you to belong. Nobody enjoys that culture.
Yeah. And what do you think is a misconception when it comes to, I guess, particularly the topic of conversation and communication? I think we touched on this when we last chatted, and you said that often people think, oh, they're shy. People are shy. Right. That's why they can't.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, they don't, autistic people, but it tends to be more the autism side of neurodivergent. The cliche tends to be that you're super shy, very kind of like in on yourself, very kind of flat affect, as they say, a bit monotone, a bit sort of nerdy, geeky, all of those things. And then on the ADHD side, the cliche is, oh, you must be super outgoing. And, I bet she's a laugh. And actually, we're all somewhere in between the two. That it might change on the person you're with, the context, the day, which I think also is why it's hard to understand neurodiversity if you're not ND, because we're sort of saying we're like this, but we're all different, and it must be hard to quantify. Well, then why is an ND person any different to everyone? We're all different anyway. I can see why it's hard to understand. But yeah, I think in therapy, the things that can tend to come up are, I'm great at creating a first impression, but I can't keep a conversation going. Or I zone out because if I'm not interested, I'm not very good at faking it. What else comes up? Oh yeah, open questions are very challenging. So you know how when you go on social skills training or business training or any kind of training, you'll be asked to learn how to ask open questions. They tend to be favored as a sort of more skillful way of communicating, but actually ND people love a closed question a lot of the time. As well, especially if someone's unfamiliar. So when I start therapy with someone, I'll say, right, this is the first session. It could go two ways, I think. Either you've waited to see a therapist or that type of person for a long time and you just want to get a load of stuff off your chest and I'm going to shut up and listen. Or you literally can't think why you're here. You've forgotten the reason. You're like a rabbit in headlights and you don't know them. And maybe you just want me to ask you lots of quick fire close questions so that you get into a role and I get the information I need and you don't have the pressure of, is this too much? Is it too little? What's the context? Because you know, when you get to work in the morning and you're in a company and you're hanging up your coat and it's like, how are you today? Like those sorts of questions really throw a lot of neurodivergent people off balance because they just don't know what you mean by how are you today. It's the question is so vast, it's overwhelming to a lot of people, and then they're already off on the wrong foot from the beginning of the day with a really quick question.
Yeah, and then sort of analysing that, how are they responding to things, and if they're responding in the right way or not, and things.
Yes.
There's often a running joke with some of my circle of friends and family of, you know, not to do, if you ask me how my day is,
yep,
you could be there for quite some time.
There you go. It's exactly that.
I almost recount my day from getting up, and I'll often go, well, I got up and then happened, then so I go into all of the detail.
That is so ND. And I think you want to say to me, you know, when you reached out to us, what resonated? I'm sorry, I'm going to turn the tables here because I'm thinking, what resonated when I contacted you? Because you're coming out with this stuff and I'm like,
Yes. Oh, I guess. I mean, as we said last time, we love a chat, certainly. So obviously, when you got in touch and said some of your message, you know, that you're really intrigued, and equally, we have had people reach out who said these cards look really good for people with autism, with ADHD, and I think for us, we're really interested to learn more and understand more. About that space, and in our personal lives we do know people, children and adults who have had diagnoses. I think Alex and I are often we know we've got a few quirks ourselves. Certainly
you're interested says something, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So we're like, and it's fascinating to hear and I guess be empathetic and understand better.
Of course.
Sure.
No, of course.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing those insights. I mean, this is such a huge topic. And when we did chat the other month, we had quite a lengthy conversation because I guess so many different areas that we were passionate about. So, you know, people listening can certainly find out so much more information from you on your website, Wired Differently. And we've only scratched the surface here, I think, on one little piece of the work that you do. But obviously, I love to ask all of our guests a couple of questions from the pack and put them on the spot, shall we say. So I've pulled out, and I thought for a bit of fun, we're going to do 3 questions from the Really Good Conversations for Kids pack.
Oh, great.
So question number 1, who is someone you admire and why?
Such a girl answer, but I have a lot of time for Taylor Swift. I know that I'm laughing because I feel like it's such a cliche now that anyone that wants to be this empowered female loves Taylor Swift, but she's just awesome. I can't fault her. And to be that kind of, I don't know, to be that kind of authentic but strong and take the criticism she does and succeed to that level. I don't know how she does it. I mean, I've talked about rejection sensitive dysphoria. I mean, the comments that people leave each other online and then to pull out that insane tour that she's doing out the bag. What her body, when I think what my body has taken from developing a company even, and how the impact on me has been really, you know, on my health has been hard going at times. I just think how, especially someone with her diminutive frame, I just think, how do you take a battering like that? She's amazing. I love her.
Oh, that's brilliant. And I did actually notice, my own, I think Instagram feed the other month was full of people trying to get tickets and securing tickets. So, I think a lot of fans out there for sure. Question number 2.
Yep.
If you could only eat one type of food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Something with a sauce on. Which is
Oh.
exactly what I used to say to my mum. She'd be like, when I was little, she said to me, I always used to be like, what's for tea, mum? And she'd go, I don't know, what do you want? And I'd go, oh, can we have something with a sauce? I mean, it was one of those classics. How did no one know I was autistic? Because yeah, as long as something has a creamy kind of sauce to it, oh my goodness, yeah, I could eat anything.
Oh, well, I was going to ask what type. So creamy as opposed to sort of
Yeah,
a spicy
creamy.
or.
Yeah, maybe I think it's just a texture thing. It's a comfort food thing. For me, comfort food is something in a sauce.
Nice.
And yeah, so like a sort of nice like birthday type meal for me would be like a fish in a butter sauce or a white sauce or yeah, lovely.
Delicious.
Planning my lunch now.
And question number 3.
Yep.
What are some things you do that make you feel calm?
Ooh. Reading. I have this thing where I'm a member of this thing called Scribed, which is a bit like Kindle Unlimited, but it's all like personal development, psychology, and business books, and it's like £10 a month. And what I do when I want to relax is I've got a million of them on my Kindle or my tablet, and I just flick through all the different books I've downloaded, and I just find it really calming. It's like I've got my own little library. They're all books that speak to me. I don't know how they did their product research when they started, but it's a very niche type of book, and I just find it really relaxing. Otherwise, I love the countryside, and I hang out with a sausage dog called Biggie Smalls, and I can't wait to get my own. So Biggie relaxes
Oh,
me very much.
oh, that's wonderful. Oh, well, they are all fantastic answers, and they just completely rolled off the tongue. And then the final question that I ask everybody on our podcast is, if you could ask any person, dead or alive, a question, who would it be, and what would you ask them?
Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me about the question before because I didn't know about the cards, but this one you'd pre-warned me about, and I still wasn't prepared. When you asked me, I thought actually it's a no-brainer because I spend my life wondering this. So I would go to your old masters of sort of therapy, your Freud, your Jung, your Roberto Assagioli, all of those people, and I would say, how did we get to where we are now with the over-professionalization of supporting people? Because what used to be going to someone who was trusted, who was older, who was a safe space, who was the right person, who of course has got training and insurance and don't get me wrong, but how did we get to the point where unless you're with a certain body, unless you've done a certain course. I did 5 years of training and none of it was transferable with the next school, and it was all expensive and it was a real rigmarole. And then you get these wars about who is and isn't, BACP and UKCP, and it's all voluntary regulation. It's been thrown out of Parliament. I'm not particularly for regulation. I just don't know how we got to this point where no one can talk about real life without constantly, I risk assess people on a case by case basis. I see people with immense complexity, often people who've been told by the NHS. I mean, I've seen people with letters that literally say, you are too complex, we've had to discharge you. Where did we get to this? It's just so depressing. I mean, you need the right person, the right skills, you need the training, but we've got to start seeing holistically. I just think support workers are wonderful. They're so underpaid. That's where we started our support and advocacy service, because I wanted to valorize that skill set and bring it to people in the private sector, and also wanted to pay people, a really great market, way above market level amount. Yeah, how did we get here? Something that started off where you could experiment, you could observe, you could make inferences, you could test your hypotheses. Where did we get from that beautiful creative thing to trying to make it a science, and in the meantime cutting off anyone who doesn't use Teams, anyone who's housebound, people from minorities, people who don't speak the language of private therapy, people don't understand how to navigate NHS? Where did CBT become God? Do you know what I mean? And I would have to go back to those old masters and say, how did we get here? Because they were onto something. And I prefer to think of it as an art than a science, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Wow, that is a powerful question. And yes, you've got my mind thinking of how and answers and that. Yeah, fantastic question. Thank you so much for your time today. How can people find out more about you, find out more about Wired Differently in the work that you do?
Yeah, sure. So wireddifferently.co.uk is our website. We are launching a charity on October the 1st that will be called Start Differently. For the moment, the website is being built. The Charities Commission allow us to start working from the 1st of October.
Wonderful.
And we have an app in development, but for the moment, that is being built in Q4. That was the first project at Wired Differently and has ended up being the last to actually have any time given to it. But yeah, so all very exciting. But wireddifferently.co.uk, and I'm really active on LinkedIn, just Sara-Louise Ackrill, Sara without an H.
Wonderful. Well, I will include those links in the show notes for this episode so people can find you and connect with you. And fascinating conversation. And I know we've only just scratched the surface in this chat. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed all the quirky questions.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information on today's guests. And if really good conversations are your thing, hit subscribe and join us next time for more business journeys, insights and banter.